guys remember The Flash Season 2, Episode 17, Flashback, and I was really looking forward to this episode, just because the promo looked really cool and everything about this episode. I knew that we were going to get the return of Eddie and Hartley, and that really interested me. I didn't really know what this episode was going to be, though, and this was pretty much a filler episode. It really was. I mean, this episode, at the end of the day, it didn't really do much of anything. It didn't really amount to anything. There were some things that the episode did really well, and there were some really great scenes, but really, this was just an episode that I feel like was just there because they want to slow things down and they want to stretch out the season, which is fine, but the Flash especially, I mean, at this point, we need to get things moving, and this episode really didn't feel like we were doing it. It really felt like a step back from getting things moving, because it seems like they don't want to get things moving, and it's like, oh, we're going to take a hiatus, then we're going to get things moving, but let's just get into it. I have a lot of things to say about this episode, mainly because of how great the opening was. I love the way this episode starts, because we start with Barry, and he's talking about how, once again, he trusted someone he shouldn't, that, of course, that being Jay, but he committed to the idea of cracking the code to increase his speed, and he's comparing what happened with Jay to what happened with Thawne, and obviously he feels like, he's an idiot for doing this, but he does want to increase his speed, and basically when Cisco comes in to bring in some resources, he vibes on the helmet and sees Zoom choking a girl. We don't know who this girl is, but Zoom is choking someone, and Caitlin then comes in, brings Barry evidence that he's running at the same time speed as Zoom and the Reverse Flash, but that their feet are spending less time on the ground, which is very interesting. We know that Zoom, is not human, obviously. Well, we do know he's human, actually. We just don't really know exactly, what's going on, with the whole Jake Garrick situation, which we still don't know. I was hoping we get some more evidence as to what was going on. Remember we got that great episode when we found out all that stuff about Thawne and who he really was and how he took over Wells' body? We don't really get anything like that, and I'm hoping we get that origin soon, because we still have yet to get it, and I really do want to see us get that origin. And this episode, like I said, I think really kept us back from doing that. But we see at dinner, Joe and Barry beat themselves up over not seeing Jay's betrayal coming, because again, they trusted this guy, and they really feel like they're stupid for doing this. And when Joe excuses himself, she tells Barry that she and Scott, her editor, Iris users off, that she and Scott, her editor, had a date. She keeps thinking about Eddie, though, and it's hard for her to date someone else because of the fact that Eddie's there. And like I said, the weakest aspect of last week's episode was Iris and the editor. I get she's trying to move on, but I just don't see these two as a couple. I really don't. And Barry tells her that he knows for a fact Eddie would want her to be happy. When she starts to object, he tells her not to close herself off or she'll miss out on something great. And I will say the strongest stuff in this episode, without a doubt, had to do with Iris pining, grieving over Eddie. That was the best stuff in this episode, without a doubt. I think Candace Patton really sold it, and that was definitely my favorite stuff this episode, which I'll get into. So Wally enters just as Joe's bringing food in from the oven. Wally's working on a project trying to increase speed in engineering class, and he's been reading journals of the great engineers, and Barry gets a realization from this and excuses himself quickly, and I like that we got this one scene with Wally because he wasn't annoying again. They're finding ways to make him less annoying, which I'm happy about. But at Star Labs, Barry tells Cisco Kane that he wants to travel back in time to last year and asks Thawne / Wells for help. Thawne was then Wells, and Wells comes in saying that it's a bad plan because he still hasn't found Jesse, and he's convinced that Thawne will know. He doesn't know where Jesse's gone, which I don't know why he's upset, because Jesse said that she wanted to be on her own. I don't know why he feels like he needs to go after her. It's just kind of weird. And I understand she's his daughter and everything, but she literally said, I want to travel the world on my own. I want to be an adult. And I don't know if he didn't get that letter, but some sort of miscommunication there. I don't really know. Just something is wrong there. I don't know. It's very strange. But, basically, he's convinced that Thawne will know that Barry is faking and that he could damage time, and he tells him that he promises Barry that if he goes back in Screw Up Time, he'll be stuck in an alternate future, and Barry isn't swayed. He thinks that this isn't going to happen. He thinks that he has this whole time travel thing down, and saying anything is better than a future where Zoom is in charge. And the other thing that's interesting in this episode is, of course, because of last night's Supergirl crossover, I was wondering if this episode, there would be kind of like, something that's how Barry got to National City, and there's nothing with that in this episode. We didn't really get to see any of that, but the team decided they're traveling back to when Harley was in town, and Team Wells were all mad at Wells, because that's really when they start to get angry at Wells, and they figure anything off about his actions in the past will be attributed to everyone being angry with Wells, and basically, anything that's just wrong, they'll just think that, they're mad at Wells. So as he travels back through time, the Flash seems some kind of strange figure, which he dodges, and he ends up traveling back a little bit too far, we see. And after interfering with Season 1's Flash fight with the Pied Piper, he knocks his younger self out, trades chest plates with him, and quickly disarms Piper. And before Piper's EMP bomb, the one in his earpiece, can be used, Barry tells Team Flash to check him for potential weapons. And it only seemed like they brought back Pied Piper to bring back Pied Piper. Now, let me just say, Andy Montez is a great actor. He does a great job playing this character, but I didn't really need to see him playing this character again, because a lot of this episode is using unseen footage from this episode that I have to assume was deleted scenes, definitely deleted scenes that they wanted to put in the episode and didn't, and then they used in this episode because they figured, hey, this is a good plot, we can put deleted scenes in here. At times, this episode did feel like a clip show, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, yeah, there were times when Barry's interacting, but there were times where I'm like, am I watching a clip show right now? It very much felt that way, and this is not the kind of show that should do that. But we see when Wells comes to talk to him, he asks for help with the speed equation. Wells is visibly distrustful but offers to help, and I like seeing this Wells again. It's been a while since we've seen fake wheelchair Wells, who isn't actually Wells, who's actually Thawne, the creepy side, and we haven't seen that side in a while, and they did a good job with, right away, I mean, Tom Cavanaugh's such a good actor, he got right back into it, but I like that we got that in this episode. I thought that was really good. And then we see Eddie, who, it was cool to see Eddie again. I forgot, what Eddie sounded like and how he looked and everything, but he comes to Joe at the police department, and the pair share an awkward moment of Iris moving in with Eddie, and it did feel awkward. I understand it's supposed to be an awkward scene, but this really had nothing to do with the rest of what was going on. Joe pulls Eddie aside, asks Eddie to go to Wells' house and search everything for evidence that he's up to no good, and I'm just thinking, this feels like a deleted scene. I mean, we've already dealt with the whole Wells situation, so why was this here? To me, it just felt like they needed to have this to have, the right amount of time in the episode, because the episode needs to be a certain amount of time, and this fit into that time frame, and it just, I don't know, something about it didn't work for me. A lot of the scenes, like I said, really felt like deleted scenes. So in Barry's crime lab, the cop is dropping off evidence when a ghostly figure pops out of the map of the city and attacks him. A signal goes off at Star Labs, and Wells tells Barry to go to CCPD to help out whatever's going on because he doesn't know what it is. And at the police department, officers are shooting at the ghost, which vanishes through a wall and out of the building when the Flash arrives and just misses it. And he doesn't know what this is, but there's this ghost that's chasing him throughout the episode, which I thought was kind of interesting, but I don't know. Again, it just seemed like we needed a villain in here just because it's a Flash episode. And at the police department, Barry tells Eddie and Joe that he doesn't know what the thing is that just left the police department could be. Barry's acting strangely around Eddie, and Joe's thinking that this is about the whole thing with Barry liking Iris, if you remember. If you remember at this point, this was when Barry had told Iris that he loves her, and Joe thinks that's what this is all about, that he's jealous about it, but we know obviously that's not what's going on here. And it felt weird, honestly. I understand we're supposed to be back in season 1, but just the whole formula of this episode, it felt very strange to me. It really just felt like something was off, and I get that might be how the episode's supposed to be, but it didn't work. It really didn't. Barry evades the question, sending Joe out of the lab, and when Barry arrives at Star Labs, he tells the team that he's seen the Demir before when he was running to take Hartley down. Wells asks Barry to come with him, and when Barry turns around, Wells sucker punches him. Barry wakes up chained to the wheelchair in the time vault. Wells asks him who he really is, and he is not falling for his tricks at all, and for a while it was working. Like, Barry had this whole thing with this equation, and Wells is not believing a single thing that Barry is doing here. Barry tries to play Dawn, and I'm gonna say Thawne because that's, so you guys know, I'm talking about Thawne and then Wells, but Thawne isn't hearing it. He knows what the ghost is, a time wrath, and he first thought it had found him, but he knows it's actually after Barry, and when he moves at super speed and Barry doesn't respond, he tells Barry that he knows he's from the future, where he knows he is, and he knows Barry's from the future, and Barry proves it by trying to phase through the handcuffs, which of course his Barry can't do, and Barry even calls him Thawne, and when Thawne asks him why he's there, he says he wants to go faster, and Thawne is the only one who can teach him that. That's basically what he wants to do, and Thawne doesn't believe it. That does not happen in this episode, which ultimately made this episode kind of pointless, because that was the whole reason that Barry got there, and we didn't see anything with that. We didn't see him really training Barry, we didn't see anything really, and that kind of pissed me off the way that happened, that we didn't really see anything with that. But Thawne doesn't believe it, saying he'd only come back if something went wrong, that Barry is still alive in the future, future. He knows that means that he hasn't beaten Barry and that his plan fails, because we know, of course, his plan was to kill Barry. But before Thawne can kill him, Barry convinces him that he's traveled back to stop the Singularity from destroying Central City. Thawne, though, says that he doesn't need a future version of Barry for his plan to succeed. Barry tells Wells that if anything happens to him, there's a letter on the younger Barry's body that will tell him how to beat Thawne and keep him from getting home, and that he tells him that he has to help Barry get faster. And I like the way that Barry kind of manipulate him with this. I mean, you see Thawne, he's genuinely like kind of like, okay, he's really advanced, because, you know, his Barry isn't this advanced. His Barry isn't this used to things. His Barry is a lot more unconfident, and this is a side of Barry that he hasn't seen before, and I thought that they did a good job with. My thing here, though, is that you have this really fleshed out thing with Wells. Like, he knows who Wells is and everything and what's going on with Thawne, but we still have no idea what's going on with Zoom, and we're on episode 17, and we need to stop slowing down. We need to really get to who Zoom is. We need to take a whole episode, understand his origin, and then I'll be fine with that, because at this point, Zoom kind of has a story, kind of doesn't. I mean, I don't really know. We know, of course, Zoom is, Jay. We know that's what's going on, but we don't know anything else. How to get Jay's body. We just don't know any of that stuff. So in the pipeline, Harley's upset they've got terrible music in on his cell. Cisco demands to know more about the gauntlets, turning off the music so he can hear. And again, I just found Harley to be there because he was in the episode and he really had nothing to do here. So in the Cortex, Kaylin's starting to hear sounds and sees the Time Wraith, which I must say was cool to see Kaylin back in Season 1. I thought the way they committed to their looks, I like that. Running from the Wraith, Kaylin and Cisco lock themselves in Piper's cell. He calls for help from Wells and Barry. Piper takes the gauntlets from Cisco, uses them to scare the Wraith away before Wells and Barry can come. Kaylin's figured out that the Wraith is after Barry, and Wells sends Kaylin and Cisco to fix the gauntlets and tells Barry to figure out how to stop the Time Wraith. And back at the crime lab, Barry's looking for some sign of the Wraith. He almost tells Joe why it's after him, but Eddie walks in and we get what is by far the best scene of the episode. Joe leaves. Barry convinces Eddie to record a message for Iris for her birthday. And we know what this is about. The fact that Iris didn't get to see Eddie, the fact that she's still, grieving over him. This is kind of like a double dip. Like, one, it gives, Eddie some sort of recording for Iris to look at. Two, I mean, it really shows how Eddie really felt about Iris, and I really like that. Really nice scene. We don't get to see what he says till the end of the episode, but I like that we saw that. That was definitely really the only thing that really paid off here. I mean, the only thing that got us in that flashback, the only thing that actually, had some sort of impact was that scene, really. That's really it. So back at Stars, the team's trying to figure out what's going on with the Wraith when Season 1, Barry finally wakes up and returns looking for the other Flash, and our Barry shows up to explain himself, and this was just stupid, honestly. It really was dumb. I get that The Flash is goofy. It's a goofy show, but this just felt really cartoony, honestly. It really did. I mean, the whole, different berries, things like that, it's something we've seen before. We saw it in Welcome to Earth 2. We don't really need to see it again here. And we get this ridiculous scene with Cisco trying to figure out which berry is who, and basically he gives Barry a thumb drive with equations for tachyon enhancements, similar to the harness that the Reverse Flash uses and that Barry was wearing in the Supergirl crossover. So you can tell that this definitely takes place before the Supergirl crossover, which I definitely like, because obviously we're going to get some sort of connection to that. At least I hope we do, definitely. But before telling Emblems with the other Flash and heading back home, our Barry tells Cisco that Harley knows how to find Ronnie, and Barry heads into the particle accelerator and runs toward the future. The Wraith on his tail the whole time. It starts to slow our Barry down when the Barry from the past interferes, knocking the Wraith off course for long enough for the future Barry to get home, and basically we're back in the future, and it was really quick. It really was quick the way that all happened. Like I said, in the future we see a gun Cisco created to stop the Time Wraith. Doesn't work, and it attacks Flash, but Harley arrives with the gauntlets and it blasts it away, asking Barry how his trip was. Barry tells the team, including Harley, that his experience was interesting. He excused himself, saying he's going to dinner with his parents, and Barry takes out the thumb drive. They bring it to the time vault and put it in the Gideon computer, and after the fact, Barry approaches Wells, who's still upset that he can't find Jesse. And again, I just didn't really think this episode did anything that big. I mean, the only impact this episode had on anything was that message that Eddie sent to Iris. Other than that, this episode did absolutely nothing for me. We didn't really get anywhere. I mean, we're in the exact same spot that we start off in the episode. And it really, like I said, did absolutely nothing. It just felt like this was an episode that they threw in there. So like I said, they can have some throwaway scenes. They can have Eddie in there because we wanted to see Eddie, which it was cool to see Eddie. The actor's really good. Remind me how great of an actor he was. But Barry approaches Wells, who's still upset he can't find Jesse. Barry tries to console him, telling him that he was just doing what he thought he had to in order to protect his daughter. Wells says he never wanted kids until he had Jesse, and then that's all he wanted. He doesn't know if he'll ever see her again. But again, she left by choice, and I don't know why Wells doesn't understand that this was her choice to leave. It was not Barry that told her to leave. She left by choice. So Barry tells him he has to trust that in the long run he's made the right choices, and that he doesn't need to worry about it, that he just needs to, understand that his daughter did this, made the right choice. So back at the West House, Iris is flipping through a book of photos with a lot of Eddie in it, and like I said, by far the best scene was this episode. Best scene in this episode was this scene. I love the way this scene was done. Especially in an episode that I wasn't particularly fond of. Like I said, I didn't really feel anything with this episode. This scene was really worthwhile. Barry sits down across from her, encourages her to move forward. He shows her the video Eddie made when he traveled back in time, fibbing to her and telling her that he created a birthday video montage. And in the message, he tells her that one of the things he loves about her is her strength and independence, that she wants him but doesn't need him, and that she can move on without him. He tells her that he wants her to be happy for the rest of her life, and nobody wants that more for her than he does. And it's just a great reminder of how great of a boyfriend that Eddie was, but also that Iris doesn't really need him. And it's a really good scene. I like the way that was done. Really good stuff there. But then the end of the episode, at the lab, Barry picks up Jay's helmet, says, "I'm coming for you," and that's how the episode ends. So like I said, this episode got me nowhere. It didn't do anything for me. I mean, we are in literally the exact same place the episode started. The episode started with Barry wanting to come after Jay, and the episode ends with Barry wanting to come after Jay. There's nothing new that came in except for that recording from Eddie, and that's really it. If they wanted to tell a story about Iris and Eddie, then they should have focused on that. The main goal here was for Barry to confront Wells, and we didn't really get much of that. We didn't see Thawne train him. We didn't see Thawne do anything monumental to change the story. And to me, like I said, this was a completely wasted opportunity. They had opportunities to do some really interesting things here, but I really feel this was a wasted opportunity. They could have done a lot more with it, and for me, without a doubt, the worst episode this season. I mean, if I had to pick a worst episode this season, this would definitely be it. The Reverse Flash Returns is still not that great of an episode, but this is by far my least favorite episode of the entire season. Like I said, it did absolutely nothing. It didn't do anything major to the plot. It didn't make me interested. It kind of pissed me off a bit. Definitely it pissed me off because I really wanted something from this episode, and now we're going on a hiatus, and I don't even care. This is probably the laziest hiatus episode we could have gone on, and yeah, King Shark was kind of like that as well, but that at least had a big twist at the end. This didn't do anything. It's just like, oh, we're gonna go on a hiatus after this random episode. It didn't work at all. It felt filler. It felt like this was something where I honestly wouldn't be surprised, guys, if they made the season and then randomly put this episode in here, because other than the beginning and then that scene with Eddie, this episode does nothing. We're never gonna hear about it again. We're not gonna, I think Barry might maybe bring some things up here and there, but it's not really gonna do anything to the plot. It didn't really change anything, and all it did was show us scenes, I'm thinking, from season 1 that they just didn't get to show. But overall, guys, I know you guys saw this episode. Like I said, not really a fan of this episode at all. I thought this episode was very out of left field, very much a step back, and I just want to get things moving. I want to find out more about Zoom. I want them to get things moving. You guys know I don't usually get upset about this stuff, but we are on episode 17. It's pissing me off that the fact that we don't know really anything about Zoom except that he's Jay, and that's really it. We know kind of his motivation and what he wants to do and things like that, but we don't really know anything else. We know, of course, that he's old and he wants to get Barry's speed to get younger again and get more powerful, but we don't know anything else. We don't know how he became Jay, and I'm hoping that in the next episode we do find it out, because if we don't, it makes me really upset. And I gotta say, I don't really think this arc is working. I've heard a lot of people say it's not working, and I don't really think this is working, I have to say. But overall, guys, I know you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said, not a fan of this episode. Definitely, it could have been a lot better had they focused more on what Barry was set out to do and not just things that were cut out and random little things like that. Then I would have really enjoyed this episode. Because this episode really did nothing, in my opinion, I really was not a fan of it. But that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul, my previous video. So we'll be for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.